morning, folks. Paul Abernathy here. Welcome to a Monday morning mobile podcast here on Master the NEC. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful weekend. Brave than TikTok. Don't waste your time. But I'll talk about it today and to point out some issues that we have when you try to learn things on social media in the electrical industry and the problems that you face. But before that, let's talk a little bit about a question that was asked, and I will talk about the comments that people gave, and again, it'll illustrate why you want to learn the National Electrical Code and stop listening to what other people say. In other words, it's you that need to make sure that you do your due diligence when it comes to the National Electrical Code and electrical in general. Just don't listen to what other people say, because people propagate bull crap, right? It's fake stuff. They say stuff that they don't really know. And the problem with it is when they say it, they think there's some part of it they know, or maybe there's some half-truths to something they say, and the next thing you know, it gets to this person, to this person, to this person, and next thing you know, it's just propagating falsehoods. And as bad as TikTok is, and a lot of these social medias are the same way, as bad as they are, you know, you could be doing everything that you can do to try to make sure you keep spreading proper information. And in TikTok and these other social medias will actually do a community violation on you. And you're really just trying to clear up misleading and false information. Because in a world, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, some of you may be old enough to remember back in the day when, you know, you go sit around and watch the news, or you learn things, and there were, you know, we don't want to say now they call them fact checkers now. They're not, okay? But back in the day when I watched the news, all I got was the news. And I didn't get opinions. I just got the news. But it did take a while for things to get to you, right? The speed of knowledge was slower. It just took a while. Well, obviously social media has changed all that. You can get up to date on anything now almost instantly if it happens, right? That's what social media has done. It makes it an instant world to get information. Now, the downside to that is that it creates a world, and especially for us as electricians and people learning the NEC or learning code in general or our trade, it creates propagation of false information, because somebody posts something, now it lives on the internet, right? And it continues on, and it's false and misleading, and then that's what it does. It teaches somebody else a false and misleading thing, and then they propagate it, and it continues that vicious cycle. So one of my advices is, there's nothing wrong with a healthy amount of social media, that type of thing, and the quick flip and enjoying some interesting, fun content. But it is something that I tell people, if you're going to use it as a learning tool, then do it with a grain of salt and really qualify the information that you get, whether it's from me or from anybody. Do your own due diligence, because there is so much misleading and false information out there, really. And people want to promote their own agendas, pound their own chest. They're not original, so they don't create anything, but they're really quick to comment. But they really, and want to, you could do a training, and this is for all you out there. You could post something, and maybe it's because it's a limited amount of time. You don't cover everything about the topic, but somebody's always ready to pounce and try to cover and make it sound like, oh, well, you should have said this. But it's so easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. And I get it. People lack creativity, and that's what they got to do. I understand. I get it. But when you propagate false information or come back with a comment when somebody's trying to give you information, and then you make it worse. Let me give you a good example. There's a dude on there, Tofu, whatever the hell he was. This morning, I was looking, and somebody asked a simple question about multi-wire branch circuits. And I went on, we explained to them what a multi-wire branch circuit is. They were bringing 12-3 to a box, and then they wanted to know, could they split off with 12-2 to the left and right. It wasn't asked whether it's GFCI circuit. It wasn't asked whether AFCI circuits. There is applications where this could be applicable and it wouldn't require AFCIs, like in a commercial buildings or other type of buildings where they might utilize a multi-wire branch circuit. Okay, but so he immediately came in and said that it's not allowed to use multi-wire branch circuits anymore. What are you doing, wiring knob and tube? Okay, so this is an example of somebody quick to post, and it starts to set the improper narrative that multi-wire branch circuits are not allowed in the code. They're most absolutely allowed in the code. Now, are there other rules that have to piggyback on top of that? Most certainly there are. Now, what he's thinking about incorrectly is that the change that's stated in 200.4 that you have to have a separate neutral for every branch circuit. That's true. So, except for it allows for you to have one neutral that can be shared in a multi-wire branch circuit. And it states it right there in the code. And then it goes on in 210.7, right? And I believe 240.15. I can hold me to that. It goes on to explain multi-wire branch circuits. So if it wasn't allowed, then why is it in the code? And so, are there inherent problems with the multi-wire branch circuits? Sure, there can be, right? But at the end of the day, if you do everything right, you install it right, then they can be as safe. And if they weren't safe, they wouldn't be a minimum standard in the NEC. So there are things that code in your normal practices will help safeguard certain things. Like when you're making up the neutrals, let's say in a large building, and you're not using a device as a splice point for your neutrals, then it reduces the risk of the neutral coming apart, okay? Rather than taking a jumper over to the device, better yet, splice all your neutrals together. If you do it properly, you have less risk. And we're not seeing major issues with neutrals coming open and turning a 120 into a 240 volt circuit and burning stuff up. Can it happen? Absolutely it can. But we are professionals, know how to wire these systems to reduce that likelihood. You can't stop everything, and you can't fix stupid, and you can't stop an improper installation if somebody doesn't know what they're doing. But you're electrical professionals. It's the onus is on you to understand what you're doing. So anyway, so we talk about two single pole breakers, identified handle tie, which is all covered in the NEC. But then the question came up whether or not you can do that with an AFCI. Yes, they make AFCIs that are designed for multi-wire branch circuits. They're a bit pricey, right? That utilize a shared neutral. They are a bit pricey, but they are available. Same thing with the GFCI. They are available. So you can't use two separate AFCIs in time together and try to achieve that. It's not going to work. They have to be designed for the application. Okay. So AFCI, GFCI, same way. So, but they are available. So when we answer questions for people, this is a reason why we answer questions and don't go off into the rabbit holes and the weeds. As an expert or a person that teaches code, not necessarily code experts, but because we don't know everything in our head, we know how to look things up and we know how to get you the information. But the problem is when somebody asks a question, it's not appropriate to, in a specific amount of time, to go down that rabbit hole and think of all the what ifs. So if somebody asks you about a multi-wire branch circuit and they want to know, can you take a 12-3 and then when it gets to a box, split it off into two 12-2s, one going one way and one going to the other? Absolutely. Multi-wire branch, that's the nature of a multi-wire branch circuit. Can save quite a bit of labor in multiple home runs. You only need to run one, but you get two branch circuits. Somebody says, well, shouldn't you explain all the other things? No, that's their responsibility. I'm answering the question about a multi-wire branch circuit. Are they permitted? Absolutely. It's not appropriate to take them down something that I don't know that they may know it, but they didn't ask it, so you don't elaborate on it. Now, if they have a follow-up question, and that's what an expert does, they'll say, okay, well, what's your question? But there's so many variables that you try to answer things, and that's the difference between people who just want to spout off and answer comments And I don't have a problem with comments. I don't. What I have a problem with is when people comment about things they know nothing about in a way that they try to imply that they do. And that's a problem. And we're not going to stop it. This is the way the social media is. I'm a very healthy blocker. I mean, I ban and block people because I'm not about the number of followers. I could care crapless about that. So if I see that you're propagating stupid stuff, I'm not going to think all of a sudden you're going to get an epiphany and everything you post is knowledgeable. If I see you post something that's so wrong, then I'm just going to block you because I'm not going to allow my feeds to get tainted with BS. And some people get offended by that, and that's okay. Not everybody's there to follow what I got to give. And so I get it. Okay? So in a multi-wire brand circuit, it is permitted by the NEC. Probably done less today. When the rule that every brand circuit has to have a separate neutral, that is the way it was done in the code. That's true. But they're still in that same code section. Okay, 200.4, that same code section gives the permission for a multi-wire brand circuit, whether it's 2 hots sharing a neutral or even 3 hots sharing a neutral. If done properly, you're not going to overload that neutral. So it's perfectly acceptable. You have to understand the principles and how the maximum imbalance load works on a system. Now, that's not to say it works in every system, okay? You have some systems that have high levels of harmonics, okay, tripling harmonics and things like that can cause issues on a neutral. But that's a totally different topic that can be discussed if the question is brought up. You want to know more about harmonic currents, tripling harmonics, the effects they can have on a circuit, why we're doing the way we do, why we're trying to balance loads out. I mean, all those type of things are legitimate questions that the answers are there, okay? So when it comes to TikTok, though, I did an experiment this weekend. I do these all the time. So the experiment I did this weekend was interesting. People say I get excited, but I did do an experiment this weekend for everybody, so I could do a podcast on it eventually. Is licensing and licensed versus unlicensed electricians, or I should say unlicensed electrical workers. So I made a post and I stated that I do not believe that people that work without a license are considered electricians, and I honestly stand behind that. I do not. They're electrical workers. God bless them. We need electrical workers. That's what keeps us going in this trade. We have electrical workers, but we also have the electricians, and I'm just a big believer. And if it offended you this weekend, I'm sorry, but I am a believer that you should not be calling yourself an electrician until you have met that threshold of licensure. That's just me. Same as I wouldn't call somebody a doctor. I wouldn't call somebody a professor. I wouldn't call something until they reach that level of respect. And to me, treating electricians and having that license in what people have to go through to get that license, and then have a couple people post like, hey, a high school kid could get their license, take the test, and pass it. To me, see, that's degrading and demeaning to the thousands of people that I teach the National Electrical Code, who are great people, great. They go on to become great electricians. Many of them are already electricians who are studying to get their master. And that's just degrading to them, because that's not true. High school kids, now, can a high school person? I could have back when I was in high school, right? Because I was so focused on the National Electrical Code. But that's a unique special condition, a special situation, right? And not everybody can say that. But to blatantly just come on and say that, the test is nothing, any high schooler, when we know that that's just not true. And so putting that out there demeans everybody out there that is working their butt off. So for those that got offended this weekend on TikTok, I'll apologize to you if I offended you, but I am wholeheartedly passionate about this profession. And I mean that everybody who is working in this profession, if there's licensure in your state, then that should be your goal. That should be your mission. That should be the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Now, whether you need it or not is really irrelevant. If you work somewhere and you're getting paid and you're happy with your pay and you're like, I'm happy, well, why not get it now while you have that knowledge and you have less stress when you're getting it than to worry about something happens if you lose that job or the owner dies or the company folds or the economy gets bad and you need to say, well, I want to do some stuff on my own. I know people who will hire me to do some work. Well, do it legally, not illegally while you're unlicensed. Go on and get that license, and then it's much easier to transition into ownership or transition into contractor licenses. It's easier to get insurance so that you protect your interests. Trust me, we live in a world today where people will sue you for anything. So every time you do work as an unlicensed electrician, you're putting your livelihood, you're putting your ability to get a license at risk. Every time you do it. Now, I'm not here to be Debbie Downer. I'm not here to tell everybody, don't do that little side job for your cousin or do that. It's not what I'm saying. And people are so passionately hurt that they translate it to that. I'm saying I am very passionate about helping electricians. I am very passionate about helping people become electricians and growing within themselves. And I do offend people occasionally. I get it. And that's okay, because I have a strong conviction towards understanding licensure and what it means. For those that are in states that don't have licensure, there are other options. Local licensing before you do a job. You can voluntarily get ICC certifications, E1, E2, because it steps your game up. It makes you stand out amongst the crowd. Just think, if you were in an area or a state that doesn't have licensing, but you voluntarily get your ICC license, or certification, I should say, or do something to step your game. Think of how easier it is to market yourself in that state against other people who have nothing. Because I believe that you have to keep striving for the knowledge. So again, you can call me what you want. People can be nasty to me on TikTok and those other platforms. I don't care, because again, I don't revolve around what people think of me. But at the end of the day, I care about you succeeding. And that's why I do the things I do. So judge a person by their accomplishments. Judge a person by what they give back to the industry, what they do for the industry. If you don't like some of the things that come out my mouth, that's perfectly okay. You can block me, but I am an equal opportunity offender, and I'm also an equal opportunity educator. I teach everybody that wants to learn the National Electrical Code. I wished I had a physical training academy that I could train the hands-on and teach you the proper way to do things, the way I learned it. I'm a VICA champion. I worked in the field for over 20 plus years. I've got the cuts to prove it. I don't think I'm better than any other electrician. We're all electricians. We're all in the same brotherhood. But there are things that I would like to teach, because I'd like to show people what I mean when I say something. But I'm not there yet, because I just don't have the ability to have that physical location. So if anybody out there has got a lot of money and they want to do a campus somewhere, get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to relocate and build a hands-on facility. Somebody knows a school that needs a director or administrator, I'm more than happy to consider it, as long as it doesn't infringe on the other stuff that I do as an NEC guy. Look, the point is, we're here to teach you the code. And don't start believing everything you see on social media. Quantify it. If somebody tells you that multi-wire branch circuits are not permitted, even though there are other things to be aware of on multi-wire branch circuits that are very valid, don't let people propagate BS. Okay? Learn for yourself. Okay? Don't even trust what I tell you. Go research it yourself until you get to that comfort level that you go, I get it. I understand it. Constantly strive to get more knowledge. It's going to always make you better in the end. All right, folks. Hope y'all have a great week. God bless. And we will see you in the next mobile or actual podcast. Make sure you get our free mobile app over on electricalcodeacademy.net. Make sure you go to fasttracksystem.com and download our mobile app, or you can go to neccat.com and get our mobile app. You can hear all of our podcasts on the mobile app. Till next time, stay safe. God bless.